Ugh, fine, I'll do it myself.
You don't want to do that, man.
Whoa, whoa. Nobody needed to bring any black people. Calm down, dog.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Alright, it's that time again. Lately I've been going through all the adult cartoons on different channels and streaming services, and you guys seem to like that a lot, so I'm gonna make it a regular thing on the channel.
People can wince, cry, beg, but eventually they do what I want.
And this time, I want to talk about a channel that I used to watch a lot. The American Broadcasting Company, or ABC if you don't want to be a dick, used to be a big part of my TV time.
There are great things happening on ABC. Take a look.
I used to watch Disney's One Saturday Morning and ABC Kids all the time. I would watch Jeopardy and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with my grandma and absolutely dominate. And if you weren't showing up for the yearly airing of the Peanuts holiday specials, you were legally allowed to be executed in my neighborhood. That's how we lost Kyle. Poor bastard chose a Garfield Christmas over life. Respect.
Just like my boys Tupac and Biggie, know what I'm saying?
But one aspect of ABC I wasn't familiar with was their adult animation. Back when Simpsons fever was at its peak, ABC desperately wanted a show to compete, so every so often they would dip their toes into the space. And as we all know, you can't show feet for free, and the shows were all quickly cancelled to save a buck. But all of them are pretty interesting, so I think it's time we take a look back at what Disney did before they just said screw it and bought The Simpsons.
Put on the ears, boy!
I'm your host and syndicated juggernaut, D'Angelo Edwards, and today I'm taking my hat off to the ABC adult cartoons.
Genius. It goes ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, click, bum, ba-bum, ba-bum, bum, click, bum.
We need more bad guys to smash.
Bum, click, bum. I be Lord of the Rings, I manifest. Represent from the den, I don't wear no vest. I got a heart in my chest, it goes ba-bum, ba-bum. I sway halfway, the day's hump, get over. I be Lord of the Rings, I manifest.
I'll put a shot to your
system. I don't wear no vest. I got a heart in my chest, it goes ba-bum, ba-bum. I sway halfway, the day's hump, get over. One out the ring, so now you got...
Oh, no, dear, it's much too dangerous. You could get run over, stepped on, eaten alive. You go.
Rats! We've got rats.
Alright, let's just get this one out of the way first, because it is a strange one. What would you say if I told you there was a show featuring a colorful cast of anthropomorphic animals, but instead of teaching lessons about friendship and sharing, it was instead about racism, corrupt politicians, and gun regulation laws?
Well, as a rule, I would say no, but okay, come in.
Well, I hope your one suit you've had since high school is clean, because we are headed to Congress with Capital Critters. Created by Michael Wagner, Nat Malden, Stephen Bochco, and I assume a gas leak. Capital Critters tells the story of the various pests that live under the White House. A nice change from talking about the rats that run it.
That works on 2 levels. Layered.
Our disease-ridden hero in this is Max, a young country mouse living his life in Nebraska. He's played by a fresh off a Doogie Howser, Neil Patrick Harris. This is most likely because Bochco also created Doogie Howser. You owe me, Neil, now get in the mouse cartoon. Max enjoys living his carefree life with his family. Gotta love a strong family dynamic. I'm sure they'll all laugh and grow together as we...
Tina, you got dark, girl. You got real dark.
Ugh, guess they're not gonna make it to the squeakquel. Yep, no more than 5 minutes into the show, we see a pretty brutal scene of Max's entire family being murdered by exterminators. It's pretty messed up, especially considering that this pretty much still looks like a kid's cartoon. Then again, kids back then were no stranger to messed up scenes in cartoons. Anyway, with nowhere left to go, Max has no choice but to live with his cousin down in Washington, D.C. It's here we meet our ensemble cast like Rat Sex Worker, Drug Addict Squirrel, and Nazi Roach.
Are you
Are you allowed to do that?
You know what they say, Third Reich's the charm.
Oh no!
While this show looked kiddie on the outside, its main selling point tried to be political satire. Keyword is tried. You see, the problem with Capital Critters is that it never really had any bite behind its satire. Every point it tried to make was either too obvious or too ridiculous to take seriously. Like, there's an episode where the characters go to the Pentagon, and as soon as they see mice down there, they start pulling out the automatics. I assume this is a jab at how gun-crazy America can be, but it's just so silly. There's another episode that treats gun violence a little more seriously when, after a mouse is killed by Presidential Cat, yes, that is his name, one of the main rats, Jamet, decides to get a gun and take out the cats once and for all. However, this leads to an arms race, as the roaches don't like the fact that the rats now have such a dangerous weapon. While this issue is treated with nuance, and if I'm honest, it's not a bad episode, there is one problem. This is a show for adults that just feels too much like a kid's show. If it wasn't for a few stray curses and some sexual innuendos, you'd think this was a kids WB show. The style of it doesn't help either. Produced by Hanna-Barbera, the character designs just come off as safe, childish, and even a little generic, which sadly also describes its main character. Max is your typical nice guy with a heart of gold, and he never really advances past that. I'm fine with your everyday Good Samaritan main character, but I need a little something to latch onto, and Max really couldn't give me any of that. I did like a few of the other main characters though.
Trixie, they got cats. Big, dumb, ugly ones too, Ma. If I wasn't around to protect her, they would have ripped her to shreds. Oh, please. Hippie fascist.
The previously mentioned Jamet is fun, played by the voice of Chicken and Buster Bunny, Charlie Adler.
Plucky. The f*** is Plucky?
He's foul-mouthed and short-tempered, but very loyal, and to be honest, I think he would have made a much more interesting lead. There's also Muggle, played by Bobcat Goldthwait, and I will never get tired of his voice, so this character is cool too. He's a former lab rat, and every so often, he just randomly explodes like a prop on Aqua Teen.
Socrates once wrote that it is the only good, and ignorance the only evil. Excuse me! I'm gonna explode!
He's actually pretty interesting, and every once in a while, he'll just get a throwaway line that makes you wonder what he's been through. Like, apparently, he just doesn't have to sleep anymore because of all the drugs and experiments they pumped in him. He kinda reminds me of that bat from Fern Gully. But yeah, outside of them, both the characters and the show itself feels a little generic, and people even thought that at the time. In a review from Entertainment Weekly, they called the designs fair but unimaginative, and that the willful primitivism of Matt Groening's characters in The Simpsons is more interesting than the blandly accomplished illustrations here. This show was actually part of a group of shows from different networks made to directly compete with The Simpsons, with the others being Fish Police and Family Dog, and they were all cancelled so fast. The Simpsons made a joke about it, showing their graves in the Treehouse of Horror. Capital Critters did not last long, only airing 7 episodes on ABC, before having the rest of them dumped onto Cartoon Network. Honestly, I think it should have just been marketed as a kids cartoon in the beginning. Any commentary this show could provide is way too simple and heavy-handed for adults. Though, to be honest, there were way better shows for kids out back then. Batman the Animated Series was only months away, and I don't think that the political mouse cartoon could really compete. I'm being really critical of this show, but that's only because I think it could have been way better. Instead of Hanna-Barbera, they should have went to someone like Ralph Bakshi. This thing could have been a spiritual successor to Fritz the Cat. Shockingly though, despite low ratings and a quick cancellation, for some reason this show got both official action figures from Kenner and Burger King Kids toys, and I couldn't get one Symbiotic Titan toy. Whatever, Capital Critters isn't the worst show out there, but with an art style that can only be described as dull but competent, and social commentary on the level of an after-school special, this mouse just don't hunt. I'm sorry, it's 4 AM, that's the best I can do.
See you in hell, mouse.
Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for accepting my invitation. What do you think of my desk? I made it myself. And I have all these pieces left.
It's great.
You think so?
Sure. Right, Randall?
It's a piece of crap.
Next up, we have the first and only adult cartoon ever produced by Disney TVA. Grab an oversized jersey and rev up those tear ducts, because we are looking at Clerks, the animated series. Like most people, I first saw this show on Adult Swim, and the style immediately hooked me. Sadly, I never got a chance to see it again, but now that I've watched all, 6 episodes? Wow, they wanted this thing out. I can see why this show got such a cult following.
I'm sorry, Mr. Dante. They said you wouldn't care because your expectations for a fair deal have been dulled after years spent at this soul-crushing, less than minimum wage hellhole.
You got me there.
But before I watched the cartoon, I wanted to make sure I had the full context. So first I watched Clerks, the movie.
Be there by 12? Swear. Swear you'll be there by 12 and I'll do it. 12 or I walk. This guy's going through all the eggs, look.
37. My girlfriend sucked 37 dicks.
In a row?
Did he say making fuck? All I'm saying is if you're that unhappy, you should leave.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
The first film of Kevin Smith, Clerks is a weird movie. More like a series of loosely connected vignettes, it gives us a look into the lives of Dante and Randall, 2 slackers working at the local convenience store and video rental respectively.
Screw you! Hey, you're not allowed to rent here anymore. Yeah!
With Dante being the slightly more responsible one, and Randall being the one who just lives for fun. You get to see them work, or at least pretend to, chase old flames and philosophize. It's kind of like watching a movie about how slackers see themselves. Too good to be working at a crappy job, yet so incompetent they can't even handle that crappy job. As someone who didn't always work the hardest at their retail job, it's good stuff, and I grew really fond of these characters in the short time I spent with them.
Do you know what really pisses me off?
The fact that I'm right about your buckling?
Then I'm gonna miss the fucking game!
Because you buckled.
You shut up with that shit, it ain't helping!
I don't yell at me, pal.
With a shoestring budget that didn't even allow for the film to be color graded, it's not just black and white to be pretentious.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
Clerks did an amazing job at the box office, grossing over $4 million on a budget of under $28K. And I'm talking American dollars, not that funny money that Canada calls currency. It went on to start the View Askew-niverse, a shared universe between a lot of Kevin Smith's movies, shows, and comics. I've only seen Clerks, so I guess I'll leave my nerd cred at the door. But back to Clerks. After the movie, there were plans to make a series, and a pilot was made. Only problem was that no one told Kevin Smith. They were already well into the casting phase before Kevin had any idea they were making it. The main characters were recasted, a laugh track was added, and shockingly, it never made it past the pilot.
Oh my god, no way!
But Kevin did have an idea for a series, and after shopping it around for a while, they eventually settled with ABC. After being given 6 episodes, all the team had to do was sit back and watch the success roll in. They aired 2 episodes and it was canceled on the spot.
Oh, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
So how's this going?
Up yours, Matt Damon.
The show still follows the same format of Dante and Randall goofing off, but now things are a lot more fantastical. An evil businessman moves in and becomes the reoccurring bumbling antagonist. The 2 get wrapped up in a viral epidemic. Calm down, this didn't predict anything. And they even break the 4th wall and acknowledge that Clerks is a movie.
Next question.
Yeah, I love the movie Clerks, but I think your show sucks hard.
But because all the characters are the same from the movie, with all the same actors and style of writing, it all just works. The dialogue is snappy and quick, and at its core, it's just a show about friends hanging out, which is one of my favorite types of shows. While I did watch the movie before watching this, I think that the series does a good job at showing you who these characters are in the short amount of time it has. Dante wants to move on to bigger and better things, but his general apathy and dislike of work keep him stuck. And Randall is fine being a burnout, but his lack of care and unearned self-confidence keep getting him and Dante into crazy situations. It's all really silly, but the characters keep it grounded. Well, for the most part. There are some out there jokes. Like they bring in this black character because they're told they need to diversify, and every time they put him on screen, they just talk over him. It's so on brand, I love it.
Hey Lando, say what up, yo.
Hello.
Clerks, a progressive show.
Peace out, homie.
And a lot of the episodes just end with the other two main characters, Jay and Silent Bob, teaching a lesson, only to end up getting in altercations with Charles Barkley, and they always end with this stupid little laugh that takes me out every time. Also, the way this show looks is great, with character designs by Steven Silver, who's worked on stuff like Kim Possible, Danny Phantom, and hilariously The Cleveland Show. The show has a super distinct look that sets it apart. I love how they distilled the looks of the main cast into these perfect caricatures. They're all instantly recognizable and iconic, while keeping it simple and easy to animate. And like I've said before, I'll never get tired of bold outlines and sharp angles. Now with all this going for it, you'd think that Clerks would have a bright future, but a lot of things ended up getting in its way. Episodes were aired out of order, the show was given a weak time slot and little promotion, and full scenes were missing from broadcasts. According to Variety, the show also had problems finding advertisers because of the crass nature of the show, claiming that its edgy content scared off several major sponsors. Did ABC not watch the movie? They should have known what they were getting into and planned accordingly. If you want a real deep dive into how ABC failed Clerks, I highly recommend Pan's video on the whole debacle. Though to be honest, if you watch my videos, you probably already watch his. After the show was cut, the rest was dropped onto Comedy Central before eventually making the move to Adult Swim for a while, which is where I first saw it. Kevin Smith had this to say about the whole ordeal.
So I guess the news is out there now. Last night was your last chance to catch the cartoon. Y'all are gonna have to wait until the video release to see the remaining 4. What more can I say about the Wonder Boys in charge of ABC that I haven't already? Hey man, I know the ratings weren't great, but there were only 4 more to go. It was about the only bone they could have thrown us after the tremendous fucking they bled us with earlier in the year. Fucking big business. Turns my damn stomach, which takes a great deal of effort as the stomach in question is more full of shit than the word of an ABC exec. If you're so inclined, let him know you're disappointed, folks. Address all complaints to Stu Blumberg and Lloyd Braun, COABC.
Kevin has shown a lot of interest in bringing the show back in some way, either doing an animated movie or maybe even a revival series. He's shown interest doing new episodes for Hulu as well, but as of now, there hasn't been any real development. But I hope that this isn't the last we've seen of Dante and Randall, because despite how little they made of it, it sure did leave an impression.
Looking back, it was the best summer of my life. They were my best friends.
Grandpa, you promised you'd take us for ice cream.
Okay, let's go. Snooch to the nooch.
It's too expensive. It's too expensive.
And when he wasn't looking, I sniffed his neck. Is this about a boy?
No, nothing. Look, Octomom.
Come on, Bliss. We have no secrets. Right, Bliss? Right?
I'm here to educate you about the single biggest threat to our planet. I'm talking, of course, about Man-Bear Pig.
Al Gore tried to warn us and all we did was make funny cartoons about him. Get ready to liberal me from hell because we are watching The Goode Family. Coming at us from creator of King of the Hill and famed Spy Kids actor Mike Judge, The Goode Family takes us into the life of those wacky libs. The Goode Family stars Gerald and Helen Goode, two people who only want to make the world better, no matter how many people they annoy.
Is it so hard for him to say African American? Wait, is that what we're supposed to call them now?
I heard someone swear that it's people of color now.
Ugh, impossible. That's just colored people in reverse, and I know that's not right.
They go through life with their daughter Bliss, who, while sharing the same views, actually has common sense, and their adopted African child Ubuntu.
We wanted to do our part to fight racism and inequality in the world, so we adopted an African baby.
Turns out we forgot to check a box, and we got you from South Africa.
Together, they go around their home city of Greenville, trying to make it as politically correct as possible. Now, on paper, The Goode Family should have worked. King of the Hill, Judge's other show that poked fun at people's politics, though from a conservative point of view, offered a smart look at people's differences and values, and showed that people are more than their political leanings. The Goode Family, however, throws all that nuance out the door, and boils it down to this.
Short answer, being vegan just makes you better than most people.
Bingo.
There is stuff that works about The Goode Family. Every so often, the show will tone down its leftist leanings to focus more on the family dynamics, like Gerald coming to terms with Ubuntu's love of football and machinery, or Helen and Bliss bonding as mother and daughter. This is when the show is at its best, and when I'm not drowning in secondhand embarrassment, I find the characters to be kinda likable. Well, at least most of them. I kind of couldn't stand Helen. She's just so determined to make sure that no matter what, she is the most morally correct. Even if it means spending the family's meager earnings at an overpriced eco-friendly grocery store, or befriending a local lesbian couple because it's the hip thing to do. It always just comes off as performative, so whenever something backfires, I never feel bad for her. At least the show recognizes that she's crazy.
I will reduce the charges, she'll get time served, and undergo a psych evaluation.
A psych evaluation? We may never get her back.
And it's not just her. The entire liberal community in this show talks like that. You can almost hear an echo from how far up their own butts everyone is.
I must say, I love what you've done with your home. This is a lovely jar of water.
We got that at Katrina. It's art, simple and powerful, reminiscent of Milan's piece.
Oh, that was full of truth.
Absolutely. I was against Katrina.
Against Katrina? When it comes to Gerald, he did kind of grow on me as the show went on, mostly because of Judge's performance. I can't believe this is the same guy that voiced Tank Hill. The accent he gives Gerald cracks me up every time he talks.
You know, Gerald, for someone who works in academia, you'd think you'd be more tolerant.
Now, Margot, there is no one more open-minded than myself.
He's just kind of weird and pathetic to the point where you have to laugh, but this show makes sure to take a stab at the conservatives too, especially with Helen's dad, voiced by Knuckles himself, Brian Doyle Murphy. He is everything the Goodes aren't. Loud-mouthed, meat-loving, and rude. He's mostly just there to zing the family, disgusting them with his barbaric habits, like having a hamburger?
He's history's greatest monster!
Yeah, the jokes about the other side of the political fence are just about as deep. Overall, there just really isn't much to say about the Goode Family. At least not enough to where I wouldn't just be repeating myself. The show can be funny from time to time. I especially love the running gag that the family dog, who is forced to be a vegan like his owners, will just flip out anytime he gets a whiff of meat. This is some of the craziest animation I've seen in my life. Dude looks like me at a Megan Thee Stallion meetup. The look of the show is just overall kind of okay. I do like how slick the line art looks, but it's kind of in an uncanny valley situation, where a lot of the characters just don't look quite right. And not just because they draw the 15-year-old daughter like this. This girl is supposed supposed to be 1 year older than Tina Belcher. I thought this was a cartoon, not an anime. The Goode Family really wasn't funny enough or smart enough to last. And after one season, it was cancelled. The jokes it was telling just felt too outdated, since by 2009, most people were aware that a lot of the things liberals cared about weren't just them whining, but actual problems. We were far past the point of Man Bear Pig. I mean, not that far past. Even now, we still have weirdos who still pretend like some of this stuff doesn't exist. But the smart people were past that, and those are the ones that mean something. The inconvenient truth of the matter, though, is the Goode Family could have been a whole lot better if it actually had something to say.
Hello?
Jay, this is your mother. Your father and I are taking you out of our will. We feel you already have enough money. Oh, yes, and happy birthday.
Alright, we are finally at the main event. Whenever there's a conversation about cartoons that need to be revived or were canceled too soon, this show is usually near the top of the list. I hope you're ready to judge Everett's work without contributing anything yourself, because we are looking at The Critic. There's kind of an intimidation factor when it comes to looking at shows like The Critic. These 2-season canceled too soon darlings that people feel really strongly about. So I'm happy to say that I really liked it, so the internet can lower their weapons. They can't put them down though. I'm sure I'll say something stupid. Created by Mike Reiss and Al Jean, two legendary showrunners of The Simpsons, The Critic started off in kind of a funny way. Originally, Mike and Al were approached by Matt Groening, who, if you don't know who that is, turn off the video, to create a spin-off focused on Krusty the Clown. It would focus on his New York lifestyle as a single dad, and introduce new characters like a surly makeup lady and a boss similar to Ted Turner.
You know what?
What?
I dodged a very big bullet. And I'm feeling pretty fucking good about it.
When they went back to Matt with their ideas, he instead wanted the show to be live action and follow Krusty around on adventures. That never got made. But it wasn't a complete loss. After finishing up on The Simpsons, the duo were approached by Jim Brooks, who said he wanted to make a sitcom focused on morning TV shows like The Today Show or Good Morning America.
He came to us with an idea about sort of backstage at the Today Show. It was like a morning version of the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
And he wanted to center it on the woman who did the makeup, which was a little out of our league. You know, we don't know much about makeup, for example. But we were thinking, oh, well, you know, there are other people at the morning show, the film critic, you know.
The two of them really latched on to the idea of making a TV film critic character, similar to people like Gene Shalit or Siskel and Ebert. You look confused. Back in the day before we had stuff like Rotten Tomatoes and whiny nerds like me, people actually used to watch entire shows on television where critics would tell you which movies were good. Okay, you still look confused. Right. So television is, by taking some of the unused ideas from the Krusty pitch, they combined it with the basic outline of Jim's idea, and The Critic was born.
Hachi-machi!
The show focused on Jay Sherman, a rich TV film critic who hosted a show called Coming Attractions. We see his day-to-day life raising his kid as a single father, trying to get a girlfriend, and getting himself into trouble, mostly due to his elitist attitude and narcissism.
And that is why God has chosen me alone to do his work on Earth!
You can probably tell why I like him. I think the show does a great job at setting up his character. As early as the first episode, you understand that while Jay is self-absorbed and heavily opinionated, he's also really kind, smart, and when he's not stuffing his face or bragging, he can even be charming. He's always going around getting into jams that could easily be avoided, like getting roped into writing a sequel for a movie he hates just because he thinks he can do it better, or entering a marathon because people keep insinuating that he might be gay. As if a pillar of raw heterosexuality like Jay Sherman could be gay. Jay Sherman was brought to life by John Lovitz, who Gene and Rice knew as Tommy Flanagan on SNL, but who I know as Radio from The Brave Little Toaster. He originally wanted nothing to do with the show, as he was just getting started finding his footing in Hollywood as a movie star, but once they told him they were going to make it an animated show, he joined in. His only rule was that they couldn't make Jay look like him. I'm really glad they got him though, because his voice is perfect for the character. I couldn't imagine Jay sounding any different. His voice is pure comedy.
By the end of this film, you feel as if you've really shared something with Dudley Moore. The dry heaves.
I always find characters like this more interesting than ones that are completely put together. A lot of the fun in watching The Critic comes from seeing Jay struggle to be a better person. Not necessarily changing his personality, because that is what makes the character, but just slowly changing the way he interacts with the people around him, and finding out which ones genuinely care for him and make him a better person. And there are plenty of side characters in this show that do that, like his best friend, Jeremy Ogg, a popular Australian actor that's the polar opposite of someone like Jay. Handsome and well-liked, for a while watching the show, I was waiting for the moment where it turned out that he didn't really like Jay, or was just using him to get good reviews. But that moment never came. They really are just two good friends, and it's great. He's also just a great character by himself, super exaggerated and full of weird quirks.
Women love me no matter what I do. I've tried not shaving, I've tried not bathing.
I've even tried talking like this.
No use.
He's played by Maurice LaMarche, who I best know as Brain on Animaniacs. Maurice actually ended up being a major part of The Critic due to his vast library of impressions he could do. With all the movies and stuff they had to parody, having him around was a great help, and I will never get tired of his Orson Welles voice.
Wait, that's terrible. I quit. Just a handful for the road. Oh, what luck. There's a French fry stuck in my beard.
I especially love the relationship Jay has with his little sister and his son. Jay was adopted, so he never really fit in with the rest of his family, who thought he was a monkey when they adopted him. But he always had a really sweet bond with his sister, helping her with her problems and being a shoulder to cry on. She's one of the only characters that never puts Jay down, and in response, she's also one of the only characters that Jay can let his guard down around. She was also one of the hardest characters to cast, with the team trying 4 times before finally settling on Nancy Cartwright. Imagine the perfect voice literally being right down the hall and you didn't even know. Nancy was actually really excited about the role, since it's one of the few times she actually got to play a girl instead of a little boy. And then we have him and his son, Marty, who share a really touching relationship. Jay is a divorcee and his wife absolutely hates his guts. But the one thing they can agree on is that they raised a good boy. Him and Jay share a lot in common, and you can definitely tell that they're father and son. Marty is kinda like Jay if he wasn't so emotionally guarded. He's openly kind and chipper, and is generally well liked. Jay's adopted parents were a bit cold, which led to Jay being the way he is. But he was still able to be a pretty good dad to Marty, leading to him basically being a mini Jay with less of his insecurities. There's honestly too many characters to get into, like Doris, his cranky makeup artist, who is basically one of his closest confidants, his crazy boss Duke, who is the embodiment of why some people just shouldn't have money, and his parents, that are the kind of crazy that only comes from old money. Love the dad though, he is great.
Oh my god!
Maybe you should have knocked first.
Who knew you still...
I'm as shocked as you are.
All of these characters and scenarios come together to make a really entertaining show. Like, the actual Critic stuff is fun and a good part of the show, and Mike and Al mentioned how they got lucky with all the movies they chose to parody, because most of them ended up being classics. But it's really the relationships and the writing that makes it feel so special. I will say that they can be a little mean from time to time, maybe a few too many fat jokes and gay jokes. But that's just kind of expected when dealing with a 90s show, nothing too aggressive. But it was subversive and different than all the other sitcoms it was around. Mike and Al even said that they made it so different on purpose. They wanted a show that was the complete opposite of The Simpsons. Jay was an elitist, Homer was an everyman, The Critic was urban, The Simpsons was suburban. All these changes helped the show stand out, but it also might have been what led it to fail. When the show premiered, it had pretty good ratings, but a few days later, Mike and Al were greeted with a full to bursting cardboard box. Turns out, it was all hate mail.
Ow, my pride.
People did not like The Critic. They thought it was mean and they didn't like Jay. They were particularly mad about the first episode where, after sleeping with an actress, his son walks into the room. Apparently, this was really jarring to the home improvement audience. It got so bad that eventually, Bob Iger himself brought Mike and Al to his office and asked them, what are we gonna do about the Critic? Where can we put it on the schedule? And Mike Reiss said, where it should go is on Fox, after The Simpsons. And just like that, after burning off the rest of the episodes, the show was done on ABC. But that would not be the last of the Critic.
Hey kids, let's welcome our special guest, Madonna! Hey Madonna!
Don't with me, hippo.
With the help of Jim Brooks, production on The Critic was moved from ABC to Fox. Don't worry though, I'm still going to talk about that season. Before we get to that though, you have to talk about the way it was introduced to the network. To promote their acquisition of The Critic, Fox decided to cross it over with The Simpsons in the episode A Star Is Burns.
Welcome to Coming Attractions. I'm your host, Jay Sherman. Thank you.
While the episode is considered a classic now, Matt Groening hated it. He thought it was tacky and he didn't want his name associated at all with it. He even had his name taken off the episode, which led to a bit of bad blood between him, Mike, Al, and even Jim Brooks. In fact, when they finally sat down to record the commentary for the DVD release, they had to re-record it because everyone just finally exploded. I guess Matt just couldn't handle seeing The Simpsons in such a shameless bit of cross-promotion. It's a good thing they never made another crossover.
Good news, everyone! Wow, turn up the headlights!
Chloe, I need those schematics now.
What? Don't you wish your boyfriend was a freak like me?
What time is it? Time for you to shut up!
Go watch Tariq's video if you want to know more about that. Anyway, the second season was where they started ironing out the kinks of the show, starting with the art style. The show never really looked bad. In fact, I forgot to mention it, but they freaking went for it in the pilot. Look at this. It's not the best, but you can't say they didn't shoot for the stars. But they realized that while The Simpsons had a very uniform style, sticking to the original style coined by Matt Groening, The Critic was kind of cobbled together, with 4 people having a hand in the overall look. David Silverman and Rich Moore, who both worked on The Simpsons, David Cutler, who worked on Little Mermaid and Oliver and Company, and Everett Peck, who worked on a favorite of mine, the Jumanji cartoon. While all these people were talented, all of these different inputs kind of muddled the stew. That's why some characters look a little out of place, with styles ranging from realistic to impossible. For season 2, they decided to streamline a lot of it. The characters got a little squatter, everything became a lot more stylized, and Jay was slightly redesigned to look friendlier and be more emotive. I think it really improved the look of the show overall, though I could see if you preferred the more realistic look. The show also decided to introduce a permanent love interest to Jay, with Alice, another divorcee, but with a daughter. It's nice seeing these people whose previous relationships didn't work out find each other, and make the other better as a result. Alice is creative, understanding, and she can give Jay a run for his money when it comes to matching wits. And Jay helps Alice have more fun, and even helps her get steady work as his assistant. Though this slight power imbalance does mean it takes a bit for them to actually get together. Besides the new relationship, it felt like the plots got even wackier. Jay's boss Duke runs for president, Jay participates in the Gulf War, and they even have a crossover with actual TV film critics Siskel and Ebert. Who did they put 2 thumbs up inside of for that to happen? While the show did get a little less grounded, I think that the fun situations and the greater focus on emotional storytelling led to an overall better show. It's a shame it wouldn't end up being treated better though. While Mike and Al still look back fondly on their days with ABC, Fox was where things got really bad. When The Critic originally started at Fox, the network had a different president, but he was soon replaced, and the new president hated The Critic. He pulled all advertisement for the show, never stopped talking about how much he despised it, and would periodically call Mike and Al into his office to explain why their show was funny, only to blow his stack when all the younger executives couldn't stop laughing. I will never understand how stuff like this keeps happening. I know older people have that experience thing I always grew up hearing I didn't have, but why wouldn't the younger people know what their own demographic wants? And why do our last 2 presidents have a combined age of over 150? We're all just screwed, right? We're all just screwed, right? The show lasted another 10 episodes, before being replaced by a show developed by that president called House of Buggin', starring John Leguizamo. While the show was cancelled once more, Mike and Al still had one more deal on the table, being offered more episodes by UPN. However, they wanted the show to revolve more around Jay's son Marty in his school life, and that was the final straw. The team said no, with Mike in particular saying he couldn't handle being cancelled by 3 networks in 3 years. And so, The Critic was finally over. Or was it?
Aham! Al Gore invents internet? New technology, last hope for fading stars? Baby, I'm back!
In early 2000, Jim Brooks approached the two with the idea of turning The Critic into a series of webisodes made in Flash. Doing it this way, they could make an episode in 9 days instead of the usual 9 months. And since The Critic was a show that relied so heavily on references, they could parody new movies while they were still fresh. Which makes it all the more baffling why the production company just sat on the episodes for 10 months. Did someone just forget to hit enter? These shorts, while definitely not on the same level as the rest of the show, were still a bit entertaining. But one thing I will never forgive them for is getting rid of Alice, even insinuating that her and Jay got a divorce. I refuse to believe that, and I have personally gone out of my way to declare these shorts non-canon. Listen, I don't make the rules, I just enforce them, and make them. But as of now, that's it for The Critic. There's always been a lot of buzz around whether or not The Critic would ever make a comeback. John Lovett is actually very open to the idea, and would love to do more.
Mark Lee Morrison on Facebook, would you do a reboot of The Critic? What would you change to bring that show up to the present? I thought that project was great. I can't quite understand it.
I've tried to get it back on, but and finally it came down to Jim Brooks said, I don't think we have enough people to staff the show, and it's owned by Fox and Sony.
He did that with that very funny guy from The Simpsons. I'm blanking on his name. He's a great writer for The Simpsons.
Yeah, Al Jean and Mike Reese created the show. Al currently runs The Simpsons, and Mike said, and Al just said he's busy and people own it, but it's up to them. Everyone always said do The Critic. I said I'd love to. I don't own the show. It's not up to me.
However, with several members of the main cast now sadly passed away, I think it's better we leave it in the past as a nice little time capsule. I mean, what are they gonna do? Bring it back and make Jay a YouTuber? I will light myself on fire and make you watch. Do not test me. If you're interested in learning more about The Critic, I highly recommend Springfield Confidential. Besides talking a lot about The Simpsons, it offered a lot more insight on The Critic. It's where I got a lot of my research for this video done. It's a good read, but I can definitely give a high recommendation to The Critic. Fun, flawed characters, hilarious writing, and a surprisingly emotional core. I give it a 7 out of 10 on the Shermometer, which is the highest rating possible.
This is Howard Stern. I want to apologize to the following groups: Latinos, Native Americans, and Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. I guess the only one I can make fun of is that fat film critic, Jay Sherman.
Are you Dustin Hoffman?
Yeah. Who died made you El Presidente.
Jay, you got a very valid point. But on the other hand, shut up.
Sir, yes, sir.
Jay, I'm gonna turn you into a sharp-dressed man. Here's to finding people who deserve us more.
Whatever comes now comes from deep within my soul.
Oh, Jay, you're the sweetest man who ever called me a super freak.
No, you're thinking of John Lovitz, and I agree. With his Sephardic good looks, he takes the cake.
I'm not gay.
I'm glad that you're not gay. I may show you why someday.
Wait a minute, edible roaches don't crawl. Edible roaches don't crawl!
Well, it's up to you. If the movie stinks, just don't go.
Excuse me, the show's over.
Get away, Pipsqueak.
That's why I love her.